The most dangerous fat on your body is not the stuff you can pinch. It's not the love handles, the back fat, or even the stubborn belly pouch that hangs over your waistband. The fat that's quietly shortening your life, right now, is the one you cannot see at all. It's called visceral fat. And if you're over 30, stressed, working long hours, and watching your energy tank while your waistline creeps up, there's a high chance you're carrying more of it than you think. Today, I'm going to show you why visceral fat is the real threat and give you 3 specific evidence-based interventions to reduce it over the next 30 days and make massive transformations in under 90 days without calorie counting, without punishing cardio, and without turning your life upside down. And I know it'll work for you because it not only has worked for me, but for my clients like Jeremy, Harish, and Corey, who all lost between 20 to 30 pounds. That's roughly 10 to 15 kilos in under 10 weeks. Hello, I'm Shanil Dhiran. I'm a strength and rehab coach and a competitive bodybuilder. And over the last 8 years, I've been helping time-poor high performers establish habits of longevity, manage chronic pain, and shred fat in a way that is realistic. But before we get into the interventions, let me explain what makes visceral fat different from subcutaneous fat. When most people think about body fat, they're thinking about subcutaneous fat. That layer sitting just beneath your skin. You can grab it, it jiggles, it's annoying, sure, but it's relatively inert. Visceral fat is completely different. It wraps around your internal organs, your liver, pancreas, intestines, and unlike subcutaneous fat, it's metabolically active. That means it's constantly secreting hormones and inflammatory molecules into your bloodstream. Now here's what that looks like in practice. Visceral fat releases free fatty acids directly into your portal vein, the highway that runs straight to your liver. Your liver gets flooded with fat it doesn't need. It can't process it and it eventually becomes insulin resistant. And that is the beginning of metabolic dysfunction. At the same time, visceral fat churns out inflammatory cytokines, proteins like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. Now these molecules trigger chronic low-grade inflammation throughout your body. And this isn't the acute inflammation that you get from like a workout or a cut that heals. This is the kind that silently damages blood vessels, disrupts hormone signaling, and accelerates aging on a cellular level. The result? Your fasting glucose starts creeping up, your triglycerides rise, your HDL, good cholesterol, drops, your blood pressure ticks higher, and your doctor just says, let's keep an eye on this. But here's the problem. By the time those markers start flagging red, you've already been accumulating visceral fat for years and maybe even decades. A study published in Diabetes Care found that visceral fat is the strongest predictor of insulin resistance. Stronger than total body fat, stronger than BMI. Another study in Circulation showed that people with high visceral fat had a 44% increased risk of cardiovascular disease, even when their weight was normal. And here's the kicker. You can be lean on the outside and metabolically obese on the inside. I've worked with clients who look fit in clothes, but had a waist to height ratio above 0.5, a clear marker of excess visceral fat and elevated disease risk. Now, let's look at the solutions. These aren't hacks, they're not biohacks, supplements, 30-day challenges, none of that. These are foundational shifts that restore normal physiology and specifically target visceral fat. And if you remember my client transformations from earlier, this was mainly what they focused on. The first intervention is nutritional and it's pretty simple. Prioritize protein in every meal and cut back on refined carbohydrates and sugars. Here's why this works. At a biological level, visceral fat thrives in a high insulin environment. Every time you eat refined carbs, white bread, sugary snacks, soft drinks, your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas releases insulin to shuttle that sugar into cells. But when insulin is chronically elevated, your body shifts into fat storage mode, and visceral fat is the preferred deposit site. Protein, on the other hand, has a minimal impact on insulin and keeps you full for longer. It also has a high thermic effect, meaning your body burns more energy just by digesting it. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that increasing protein intake by up to 25 to 30% of your total calories led to a significant reduction in visceral fat over 12 weeks. And this is without a caloric restriction. Now, the second intervention is movement-based. and it targets visceral fat through two complementary pathways: improving insulin sensitivity and building metabolically active tissue. The first is zone 2 cardio. That's sustained, moderate intensity aerobic work where you can still hold a conversation. Think brisk walking, cycling, swimming at about 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. Now, why does this work? Because zone 2 training trains your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, if you will, to burn more efficiently. Now, a study in cell metabolism found that regular zone 2 exercise increased mitochondrial density and significantly improved fat oxidation, with visceral fat showing to be our greatest reducing factor. Aim for about 3 to 4 hours per week, and I know that sounds a lot, but it's doable. 30 to 40 minutes of brisk incline walking most days, and a longer one on the weekends. Now, the part 2 to movement is compound strength training: squats, deadlifts, rows, presses. And the reason why I prefer the big movements is because they recruit large muscle groups and they signal your body to preserve and build lean mass. Muscle is metabolically expensive tissue. The more you have, the more your body prioritizes using fat for fuel instead of storing it. Now, there's been research published on the topic of obesity that showed that resistance training 2 to 3 times per week led to greater visceral fat loss compared to aerobic exercise alone, especially when combined with adequate protein intake. Now, before I reveal the third intervention, it would help this channel out a lot if you could give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Your word of confidence ensures this information can be seen by more people and we can continue on our mission to live better for longer. Now on to the third intervention, which is often overlooked, and that's sleep and stress regulation. Visceral fat accumulation is heavily influenced by cortisol, your primary stress hormone. Chronic stress keeps cortisol levels elevated, which tells your body to store fat, preferably around the organs. So there have been many studies that have actually found that people with chronic stress and poor sleep have had significantly higher levels of visceral fat, even when diet and exercise were controlled for. Here's the biology. When you're sleep deprived or chronically stressed, your body becomes insulin resistant. Your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, get dysregulated, so you crave sugar and processed carbs, and your sympathetic nervous system stays fired up, keeping cortisol levels high, even at night. The fix? Prioritizing 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. Keep a consistent bedtime. Wind down without screens for an hour before bed. Sleep in a cool, dark room. And for stress, find a practice that works for you. Yoga, breathing activities, journaling. Practice a couple of them. The goal is to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest mode of your body, on a daily basis. You should be able to downregulate into this after work, after any stressful situation, easily. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Reducing visceral fat isn't about punishment. It's not about starving yourself or grinding through brutal workouts that you hate. It's about restoring normal physiology. It's about giving your body the inputs it needs: adequate protein, purposeful movement, restorative sleep, so that it can stop defending that fat storage and start using them. When you reduce visceral fat, you're not just changing how you look. You're fundamentally improving how your body functions. Your insulin sensitivity improves, inflammation drops, your cardiovascular risk falls, your energy stabilizes, your sleep deepens, and your mood lifts. This is metabolic restoration, not a diet. Visceral fat is silent, but it's not inevitable. You don't need extremes or perfection. You need consistency on the fundamentals. Prioritize protein, move with purpose, and protect your recovery. If you implement these 3 interventions, even imperfectly, you'll see changes in weeks. Not just on the scale, but in how you feel, how you sleep, and the biomarkers that actually matter for longevity.